Kayley, welcome so much to the Success with Soul podcast. I'm so excited to have you on as a guest. Please let our audience know who you are.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm Kayley Hamilton, the founder of Kayley Media. My background is in celebrity entertainment news reporting. So I used to work at outlets like Entertainment Tonight, The Insider, Us Weekly. I grew up loving all things Hollywood, celebrities, the glamour. But what was interesting was I wasn't the person who wanted to be the actress or be the singer. I wanted to be the person who was on those red carpets at the Oscars, interviewing those incredible celebrities and just people that I really looked up to and admired. So my whole life, that was my dream, was to interview celebrities on red carpets and just connect with the person behind the character. So I ended up being able to do that. I worked in entertainment for over 7-8 years, learned a lot, met incredible people, interviewed a lot of amazing people, obviously. And then once the pandemic hit, my job was to hustle all over town, work a bunch of events, and then all of a sudden that all stopped. I also went through a breakup. It was just one of those life-shifting years, obviously, for everybody and me personally. And that's when I kind of turned inward and worked on my self-awareness and tried to figure out what my future looked like. Who did I want to become? Because everything that I knew up until that point was kind of being wiped away. And that's when I turned into listening to podcasts and finding people on articles or TV segments. And that's when I found all of these incredible experts and thought leaders in their industries who really helped me to envision a new life for myself. I took up a meditation practice. I found my business coach. And they all showed up for me. I didn't even need to do a lot of work to find them. It's like they found me through the media. And that's when it kind of dawned on me. And I realized, gosh, I'm sure there's so many incredible people out there who have expertise that they need to share, an inspiring story that can inspire somebody like me who's waiting to just hear from them and be inspired. And so I thought that I would take my background in media to help other people who want to be seen on these bigger platforms and reach the audiences who need to hear from them. So that's when I started my company, Kayley Media. It's been almost 2 years, and we help founders, creators, experts, entrepreneurs. We help them to be seen and earn media exposure. So that's either through podcast interviews, through digital feature articles or print articles, and through TV. So they can kind of up level where they're currently seen so they can reach the people who need to hear from them.
Yeah, amazing. Of course, that especially now, right? It's so important for entrepreneurs really to have exposure, especially like, for example, Team KK, we're not on social media. So for the past year, our company has basically just left social media. So for us, having an avenue to have different outlets to have exposure is key. So why is having a PR strategy so important? For example, a coach or an online business owner, right? Like us. And I'll even add, especially if you're not on social media.
Yeah, that's such a good question, because everybody goes to, oh my gosh, I need to build up my social media. I need all the followers, social. But if you really zoom out into the world, there are a lot of people that really don't like social media, and they're not on a lot, and they don't care about building up their own followers or following other people. They're the people that are maybe listening to podcasts or turning on the news or going through Google News alerts and seeing what's being posted in the news. And so it's really important to have a PR media strategy, because it does elevate you and your brand beyond your owned platforms, which is something like your website, and then also your social media, which is owned. It goes beyond the people who find you just by Googling you or going on your website, or the people who are on Instagram or are on TikTok. It puts you a level above to reach a wider audience, even beyond paid marketing. There's something about tapping into, say, for instance, a podcast. With a podcast interview, you're tapping into a very loyal audience, especially with podcast hosts. They've already built up that trust factor with their community, with their audience. And so for them to give you their platform for an episode is huge, because you have a very engaged audience there, and they could really align with you without having to be on social media.
Yeah, I love that. Yes. I'm curious, you described that your journey transitioning from like a very painfully shy girl to like interviewing some of the world's biggest stars. Can you share a little bit about your journey to learning how to amplify your voice, and what tips would you give to others in your shoes, especially someone who's like an introvert?
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I grew up very shy, very quiet. Yet it was like a juxtaposition contrast for me. I'm so quiet and shy and kind of insecure. But then the other part of me is like, I want to be on a red carpet talking to the most famous people in the world. I'm like, where is this like push and pull contrast within me? I need to like align with who I am inside. And so I do actually have kind of a method I use now, but back then I just kind of leaned into taking action toward what I wanted. And the first thing is to just get outside of your comfort zone. I love the quote, "Get comfortable being uncomfortable," which is so true. It's like everything new will be uncomfortable. And so the more that you push yourself to do new things outside of your zone, just the more that you're able to build up that confidence within yourself, because it's really important to decide, if you decide that you're going to do something and you keep that promise to yourself and then you go and do it, that you on the other side of that it's very empowering, because you realize that you can count on yourself. And so that's kind of another way to sort of build confidence. And a method I use, something called the FPL method. So for the letter F, when it comes to kind of trying to build that confidence, I like to first fantasize or like visualize, like picture that scenario. What am I working toward? And just getting clear on like what I want to do, the person I want to be on the other side of that thing that I'm trying to accomplish. And then the other F is to feel. So I like to just like mentally rehearse. So for example, when I did my first celebrity interview, I went and helped out on these shoots, and my friend who was actually doing the interviews, she turned to me, she's like, "Kayley, do you want to do some of these interviews?" And she handed me the mic, and I basically blacked out during the first few interviews. I was just so nervous. But it was one of those things where you just have to push yourself kind of off the diving board and just go into it and trust that you have everything within you that you need to get to the other side. It's not going to be perfect. That's okay. So the other F is kind of like feeling that and mentally rehearsing, like, okay, what is it going to feel like when I hold the mic in my hand and lock eyes with some celebrity before I go into an interview, and kind of feel those emotions before it happens. It's like a daydream state. And then the P's of my FPL method are to plan. So just planning the steps that you're going to take toward your goal, or even planning out your goals, like figure out what you need to do to get to where you want to be. So for me, being the shy girl growing up in Colorado, I was like, okay, first step, when I graduate high school, I need to at least get out to Southern California, which I did. So kind of just making those tangible plans once you've visualized and daydream where you want to end up. The other P is to push. And so that's to, like I said, push yourself off the diving board, and that's the action. And it can be baby steps in one direction or big giant quantum leaps in that direction. Just either way, it's really important to just keep moving. Because the more that you kind of sit in the thoughts, sometimes the thoughts can really overtake you and suck you into this like deep, dark hole. So sometimes you really just have to do and think a little bit less. So push is the other is the action steps. And then the L's are to learn and to let go. So when you're taking these actions, it's obviously important to learn along the way. And that can be and you'll learn so much taking the action and doing it in person. and actually physically experiencing things. And then make sure you always just learn from what action you're taking, and you can ask for help along the way. You can do research, you can find a mentor, shadow people. That's what I did. I was working as a production assistant at Entertainment Tonight, and I saw other people who were field producers and interviewers, and I was like, I want to do that. And so I just offered, outside of my job, I just offered to go and shadow them on red carpets. And that's how I ended up doing my first interview and going down that trajectory. So just by doing that, I was able to learn what this job was without actually being paid to do it or needing to do it, just going out of my comfort zone to learn in that scenario. And the last part is let go. So just, it's kind of like trusting yourself that everything is working out, falling into place with what you've visualized in your mind. And also just trust the unknown. I really love Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's a researcher in neuroscience, and he says the magic is in the unknown.
I love Dr. Joe Dispenza. So that's love him.
I know, he's so inspired. He was one of the people, he was the main person I found during the pandemic that really changed how I viewed my life and pushed me down this trajectory. But he says the magic is in the unknown. And we're always so scared of the unknown because it is scary, it is uncertain, but you have to kind of transcend that fear and just trust that the universe or whatever you believe in, that you are guided in the direction that you're meant to go.
Oh, I love that. And I will say, so I read his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Yes.
And yes, he mentions that in that book. And did you mentioned that you started a meditation practice. Is Dr. Joe Dispenza the meditation practice that you started?
Yes, he turned me on to it. I had dabbled in meditation before, but after hearing him on podcasts, I heard him on one podcast and then literally had to binge every single podcast. And then of course, read the books, and then of course, looked up his meditations. So yes, I started doing Joe's meditations. Another app I love is called Superhuman. She has amazing meditations. So yeah, do you do Joe's meditations as well?
I actually do Dandapani. I don't know if you've ever heard. Yes.
No.
So he does unwavering focus. So I do Dandapani. And most recently, I will be starting actually on Friday, transcendental meditation. And oddly enough, it's taught one-on-one, and you have to do it in person. So
oh my gosh, yes.
Very unique experience to me. I haven't done things in person since 2018 when I became an entrepreneur. But I'm really excited to do something in person, and that it's one-on-one, and that is the only way that they teach it to you, because they give you like a affirmation that is only a mantra. I'm sorry, that's specific to you. So
yes, I actually, you're going to have so much fun. I actually did take a transcendental course like before the pandemic, and yeah, it was amazing. They give you a mantra. I'm pretty sure there's some sort of like ceremony. It's very special.
Gratitude ceremony.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You'll have to let me know how that goes. I think you'll love it.
I'm excited. So where do people usually like miss the mark when it comes to like honing in on their business and their brand's unique angle and voice?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because it's really hard when you're in it to pinpoint, okay, what's interesting about me? This is just feedback that I always get. It's like, do people even care what I have to say? Do I have anything important to say? Would the media care? And it's like, yes, 100%. You have something important to say. You have some sort of expertise or an inspiring story or something that you went through or something, just some sort of knowledge and value that you can share that somebody will resonate with. You know, think of the person on the other side who would listen to your podcast interview or read your article or watch you on a news segment. Think of that person and what they can take away from something that you can share. So when it comes to crafting your PR story, the first question I have clients think about is, what do you want to be known for? So just really getting clear on, okay, if I'm going to start getting media exposure, that means I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to be visible. I'm going to be seen. So what do I want to be known for? Like, how do I want to publicly position myself? And this is a matter of thinking about your future self. Like, what are they known for? Who are they helping? What are they teaching? And how are they being seen by mass audiences? So that's the first thing to just kind of mull over and keep in the back of your mind. And anyone listening, definitely write these tips down. I have a couple. So that would be the first one. The second one to craft your PR story is think about both the professional topics that you can and are willing to speak on, and also personal topics that you want to and are also willing to publicly speak about. So for professional, just write down a list of topics that you believe you're an expert in. And again, you don't have to have a certification. You don't necessarily have to have all of these accolades, things like that. It's honestly something that you have personal experience in, professional experience in. So write down a list of that for professional, and then same with personal. You want it to be something that paints the picture of who you are and how, again, how you want to be known. So for me, my personal was I grew up very shy and I struggled with self-worth, and I'm happy to talk about that journey for myself. And then also what I went through in the pandemic, like those are personal stories that kind of paint the picture of what led me to where I am today. And then for professional topics, obviously mine are PR, how to craft your PR story, how to reach out to media outlets. Those would be kind of my professional topics. So think about your professional topics, think about your personal topics. And then the third thing is kind of fun. And this is the part that may trip people up and may be difficult, but I call it the name drop. So it's kind of thinking of what is that it factor or that like aha thing about you that makes people kind of do a double take. And you might feel like it's a name drop, but you have to own it. So it's like you're talking about yourself with someone new. You can think about the scenario. If you're speaking about yourself or your business, what is that one thing that you say, that you mention, that kind of perks people's ears up? They kind of lean in and they're like, wait, what was that? Oh my gosh, that's so cool. And their mind kind of does a double take. So think of that factor for you. And this can be like achievements, again, personal or professional. It can be something interesting about your upbringing, maybe your education, maybe personal or business milestones are something good. Perhaps you've worked with impressive clients or high profile people you've worked with. Just something impressive that's about you or your business, or any just like amazing but true fact or story about your life that led you to where you are today. So with mine, my kind of name drop thing that I lead with is that I am a 2-time Emmy winning producer. That always gets people to kind of do the double take. They're like, what? Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And obviously that it can be anything different from that, but that's kind of an example of what I lean into. And then another thing, an example would maybe be somebody's age. Like when we work with clients who maybe have built a very successful business before they turned 30, we lead with that because that's very impressive. Or even a mom who is a mother of like 6 children, like that's very impressive. Or business milestones, any numbers that you can share within your business is impressive. If you scaled to a certain number within a certain number of years, that's really helpful when it comes to media. Media love numbers. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. And then the fourth out of 5 to craft your PR story is think about you as a thought leader. Like, what do you have to share with the media that makes you a thought leader? Do you have some sort of maybe a differing opinion as to what's being reported on in your industry? Maybe an opposing angle or a new narrative to what's already being reported? Maybe you have some sort of predictions for the future of your industry that you would want to talk about in an article with a journalist. Maybe there's some sort of insight that you know about your industry that isn't even being reported yet. That would really get a reporter very curious and very excited to speak with you. as long as you're able to speak about it publicly. So it's just kind of some information or knowledge that you have that would position you as an authority in your industry. So number 4 is kind of, how would you position yourself as a thought leader? And then number 5 are coming up with takeaways. So what value are you giving? When you're pitching yourself to the media, there needs to be some sort of value, some sort of insight, maybe something fresh that isn't out there that will get the audiences who are reading or listening or watching your segment, that will get them to tune in or get that click. Media really cares about audience clicks and audience viewership. So what is that kind of aspect? And what is that thing that would just get the reporter or media contact excited to do a story? And then while also giving value to audiences. So those are the 5 tips for honing in on your PR story.
That's amazing. I literally just felt like I did a masterclass. That's amazing.
It was a lot.
Our audience is going to get a kick out of this. Thank you so much for that. I wanted to kind of segue back to the pandemic. And I know that before the pandemic, and then in 2021, when you founded Kayley Media, you were working in an industry where you had to hustle to get interviews and do your job. So I wanted to ask, what have you learned during the last few years about how hustle impacts you as a businesswoman? Hustle is like anti-hustle is like a big theme for us at Team KK,
Yeah.
what we teach inside the incubator. And so what tips would you, this is the second part to that question, what tips would you give for ditching the hustle mentality and, adopting a more sustainable work practice?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I completely agree, because working in Hollywood and entertainment industry or any sort of industry like that, it's a lot of pressure because everybody wants to be in there. Everybody is very smart, hardworking, impressive, talented, and everyone is trying to climb the top as quick as they possibly can. So it's just a lot of competition. And it's also a lot of work and a lot of hours. I would go into the office, the production studio, and work from there. And then I would immediately afterwards work events, red carpets in the evenings. And then I would go home and transcribe my interviews, stay up late, put together my whole entire report. Like, some days were so long and it was very fun and exciting and thrilling. But on the other side of that, it was such a black and white for me. It was like, I thought it was cool to be the girl who worked hard and played hard. So on the weekends, I would go out and go dancing with my girlfriends and like grab dinners. And I needed to have that sort of release because my weeks were so stressful and pressure filled, to the point where in my maybe mid-20s, I started going to therapy for the first time and trying to figure out, like, oh my gosh, I have my dream job, but I am so stressed out and so overworked. And I realized that was the first time I actually experienced burnout, so much so that I ended up leaving my job and taking a few months off. I fully had to recalibrate and think about, okay, this is not sustainable. I cannot be working like this. And so moving forward, honestly, it's just about taking a deep breath, not putting so much pressure on yourself, and really putting up those boundaries. Because when you hold yourself to a certain level when it comes to the work that you do, obviously, you want to do your best work, but you also have to set your boundaries with yourself and with the people that you work with. And if the people you work with care about your well-being, then they will respect those boundaries as long as you communicate them. So I think boundaries are very important. And self-care. I finally started getting into self-care like in my mid to late 20s. And that was a game changer. Just taking weekends to maybe do a yoga class, slow down, go get a massage, going for walks, getting fresh air is huge. That's super helpful. Some sort of breath work, meditation, having those tools just in your back pocket, and it can be anything that just kind of calms your nervous system. Not something that's kind of stimulating, like watching reality TV or scrolling on Instagram, things like that, but something that fully calms your nervous system and helps you to be present within your body and to calm the mind. That's why I love meditation, because it just takes you out of what is seemingly such a stressful world around you, and dropping it back down to kind of being grounded. And when you're in that grounded present state, you are so empowered, because you're not acting from a place of reaction or emotions taking over your thoughts. You're coming from a place of, okay, I can pause, I'm very aware, and I can respond rather than react. So I think having some of those self-care tools just in your back pocket are very important, setting those boundaries and making sure there's always a good balance. I love to be motivated. I love to work hard, but I also love the balance of calming myself. And that doesn't have to be seen as being, like just resting or not getting work done. It's like we live in such a kind of masculine environment where it's like work, 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 work. And everyone has masculine and feminine energy. So we really you have to balance both of them. And being in that feminine flow, that's when I'm the most creative. That's when I come up with my best ideas. And it is about the balance. Just because you're taking a nap does not mean that you're lazy. It honestly helps me so much. I'm so much more productive if I go and lay down and take a 20-30 minute nap, when I can tell that my brain is just kind of shutting down. And then I come back. If I still have work to get done, I come back to it and I'm like a new woman, and I get it done in half the time, as opposed to if I tried to force myself to do it without giving myself that self-care tool. So it's just being aware of your own boundaries and having those self-care tools for yourself.
I love that. There's so many things that you said, like, balancing the feminine and masculine energy and really leaning into that and giving yourself grace. This is all something that is dear to us at team, not just with our team, but also with our community inside the incubator. Off camera, I mentioned to you that we actually practice cyclical living. And that's something that we teach, and especially as entrepreneurs, to really lean into, one day you might not really want to be doing the finance part of the business. And, maybe you want to be doing the graphics, and another day you're going to be totally inspired to do the marketing. And just really honoring that. So I love that you said that, and balance is the key. For
100%. I just read that book, The Four Agreements.
Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yes, he's so good. And one of his agreements is just do your best, but your best will look different from day to day, and that's okay. And so I really loved that. It's like, it's okay. Some days I'm going to be super productive. Some days I'm going to lean very much into self-care. Both days are okay, as long as I'm feeling my most just best self.
I love that you mentioned that book. I have read it probably 20 times. I read it at different stages in life. And every time I read it, I would highly recommend that you read it over and over, because depending on what stage you are in life, you're going to get something that maybe you missed before, and it's going to resonate in a different way. Love Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yes, that's such good advice. I know I'm going to keep that book around for all of the different stages for sure.
Yeah. So Kayley, I am so excited with everything that you have shared with our audience. And I actually love this part of the interview, because it's called our lightning round. And so I'm just going to ask you a set of questions. Don't overthink it. Just whatever comes to mind. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. So the first is, what's your favorite way to make time for self-care while running your own business? I know you've mentioned meditation, but is there anything else that you'd want to share?
I give myself my mornings. So I'll wake up 2 hours before I'm going to start work, and I'll give myself the morning to do my Pilates, to do my meditation, to just ground and set into my body before I'm off to the races on my laptop.
I love that. So, what's one tool or strategy that you use to help with time management?
That's a great question. I'm a to-do list person. I like to, in the mornings or in the evening beforehand, I'll write out my list of the very top priorities of things that I need to get done the next day or that day of. So just so I'm very clear on what my goals are for the day. And sometimes I do even put it in little sections of time, like, okay, before lunch, I will do these 3 things. After, I'll do these, break it up in different time frames. So clear to-do lists very much help me.
Love that. Do you use a project management tool?
I use ClickUp within
So do
my
we.
company. Really? Yes. I'm actually working on like revamping my Click. There's so much to learn. I need to optimize my ClickUp.
Yeah, we use ClickUp, love ClickUp, and yes, you could go down that rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah.
What's the most powerful business mindset entrepreneurial book you've ever read? This is the one that you're going to reference over and over again. I know that you're a reader. You've already mentioned like amazing books.
Oh my gosh, there's so many good ones. One that comes to mind is The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. And he just goes through every principle that could ever help you to be successful in not just business, but in life. So that would be my go-to book. It's a long book, but my gosh, is it helpful. It is full of gems.
Oh, I love Jack Canfield.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite quote, mantra, or affirmation for when things get tough and you feel like giving up?
Gosh, what I'm trying to think. I'm always circling through different sayings for my vision board, which always resonate with me. Something that really helped me at the beginning stages of my business was on my vision board that I wrote is that I heard somewhere was just simply nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody's just figuring it out. And I have always, and I think this is what contributed to my kind of low self-worth growing up, is that I would put other people on pedestals. And just in my mind, I would put myself so far beneath them because I thought that they knew all these things or had all these secrets. And they were incredible people. But in my mind, I put such distance between the two of us. And so seeing that quote, I was like, it just kind of put things into perspective of, we're all trying to figure it out. The people who are over here, they didn't know what they were doing when they were over starting from day one. So that kind of helped me to gain some confidence and put me in my mind on the same level of everybody else just figuring it out.
Oh, I love that. I know that for entrepreneurs, the infamous imposter syndrome,
Yeah,
will get you every time.
absolutely.
Yes. And so you're on the Success with Soul podcast. So the last question is, what does success with soul mean to you?
That's such a beautiful question. Success with soul means to me that you are doing things in alignment with your highest self. And that can be, my mind goes to just how are you serving others? Because that's always what it comes down to. And it's such a primitive concept too. It's like what fulfills us is helping other people, helping our fellow humans. And so kind of acting in alignment with that highest purpose within yourself, I think is what kind of embodies success with the soul in my mind.
Oh, I love that. I'm an astrologer as well. So as
Oh
like a
yeah.
Virgo rising, Saturn, Virgo, North node, all of it, I'm here to be of service. So that I love so much.
Oh,
So Kayla, this has been amazing. This has been such a wonderful interview. So many tips. Our audience is just going to love this.
Yay.
And please let our audience know, where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been such a lovely conversation. Yeah, they can follow me at Kayley Media on social media. And my website is kayleymedia.com. And certainly reach out if you're interested in kind of up leveling through media exposure. It's a scary kind of thought. There's fear back there, but it's so rewarding and so empowering when my clients get those feature articles and get on those podcasts and do TV segments. It's like, nothing like uplifts me more than seeing those transformations. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was such a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been great. It's been great. Thanks, Kayley.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.